and it was folded and ironed, and it was like $3.
That's
You know,
awesome. All right.
yeah,
Well, thank you. It's so good to see you, Susie. I'm so grateful you're here with us. So Bruce and I are here to
and it was folded
read
and ironed, and it
and,
was,
let's see, read and discuss Absence from Felicity, which is oh, and Susie got the book. How about that? Man, oh, man, oh.
Very
Very
good.
good. All right, you start from the beginning. I mean, you read with us, but start from the beginning. You're going to be amazed if you haven't read, even if you have read this um, before, because it's mind blowing to me, and I've read it before. All right, here we go. And our book should be.
So we're reading Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD. And we are on, in the print version I happen to have in front of me, it on the bottom of page 377 and looks like page 364 of your digital version, about 74%. So we're about almost 3/4 of the way through this thing after coming up on 2 years in the summer.
I know it. I've been listening to some of our old recordings because I play that stuff during the day when no live people are on, and it's just so cool. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a life I have. I just feel so blessed to have this and to have my friends and all of this is just talk about the light has come.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. Um, so someone's in my group this morning said uh, when I was studying this lesson before the first time, lesson 71, um, I it dawned on me, and he said it dawned on me, and the light has come. And I thought that is pretty cool. People always say, well, I got this download, or, the Holy Spirit said this, or whatever, whenever you talk about the voice in your mind, that tells you and talks to you, which is, the voice for God or the voice for the ego. But um, I like the idea, it dawned on me, because I think that's a much better, it's just more real to me. It dawned on me. Anyway, it dawns on me it's time to read. We've been talking about reading about uh, some of the uh, things that have been going on uh, in between Helen and Bill. And of course, Ken was in the middle of it all. Uh, so I'm going, and they had just met up and gotten involved with Judy Scutch, and just go back a little bit and look here. And they had been going out and doing some talks at different places and doing group talks, which that had to have been an amazing experience. I don't know. I was young, so but I think I would have loved to have gone and seen them. Um,
Yeah, not too many recordings from that era that I know of, but if any. But there there are a few of recordings of Helen and Bill on the FIP website. But certainly we have a wonderful legacy of Ken's stuff and Judy's as well. Their work online, huh?
Yeah, it just is amazing because the technology now you could you have a recording of everything, but back then not so much, and so we just have to listen to Ken's idea. So do you want me to read?
Sure.
Okay. Um, to compound what was already a worsening situation, Helen was forced by Columbia Presbyterian's mandatory retirement policy to leave the medical center. Helen had turned 65 in 1974 and was required to retire. However, because Helen's birthday fell in July, Bill was able to negotiate another year for her to remain on as an official member of the department. And then for an additional 2 years, Helen continued as a volunteer consultant, which allowed her to go to the medical center every day as before. But finally, somewhere in the middle of 1977, the inevitable occurred, and Helen left Columbia Presbyterian never to return again. A year later, Bill retired, and sometime after that moved permanently to California. And for some of you who follow us on Tuesdays, Sharon and I are reading Never Forget to Laugh, which is Carol Howe's wonderful book about Bill Thetford. And so we're reading right along the same timeline right now of Bill's move to California and evolution. So it's interesting to be seeing it from both directions here. Okay, so therefore, the seeming improvement in the situation between Helen and Bill after Judy's arrival on the scene and their increased public relationship with the course was short-lived. Even the ostensible shift in active interest was a two-edged sword, as the conflicting undercurrents merely intensified and widened the gulf still further. As A Course in Miracles repeatedly insists, seeking solutions through external circumstances never works, and the peace of God is not found outside us. Thus, despite all the well-intentioned purposes, the underlying unresolved conflicts within and between Helen and Bill became reinforced. Helen's deterioration and withdrawal, which had already been slowly progressing, continued inexorably over time. What began as an almost imperceptible change became increasingly noticeable in the months as the months went by, and the vacuum left by Helen and Bill's fading leadership was increasingly filled by Judy. It was almost as if with Judy's coming, Helen, and Bill to a lesser extent, abdicated responsibility for the course's life in the world. Helen certainly did not feel it was part of her, quote, assignment, unquote, to demonstrate the course's principles, nor to guide its public journey. For example, Helen supervised very closely the first printing of the course, especially the color and design of the book, but did not do so afterwards with any of the subsequent printings. In the absence of Helen's supervision and guidance at the beginning of its public life, the course has thus developed in a much less focused direction than it would have otherwise gone. Judy, I believe, represented an alternate quote unquote plan for the course's growth in the world, and one which involved its becoming quite popular with approximately 700,000 sets sold as of September 1991.
Mhm. And
Oh
sets,
my,
of course, refers to the original 3 volumes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which, so this is obviously, let's see, what have we got? 25 and 9. So we got, what, 34 years ago?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
I
just
think it's in the multiple millions of
it
copies in 27 plus languages now.
yes, and
Yeah.
that's only the FIP version.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I
There
was just
are
assuming that.
other
Right. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there
There's obviously all these other knockoffs and variations, right? Yeah.
knockoffs and variations.
Yeah.
That's so polite.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of other versions out there that have been, and when we say version, as long as the purpose of the what you're reading and you're given the opportunity to practice forgiveness and accept the atonement, it doesn't matter, if it was written
No.
on the back of a napkin.
Right. Right.
And Ken made that very clear in his in that Taking the Ego Lightly, which I guess is out in a book as well as audio. Anyway, go ahead. What were you
It,
going to say?
oh, it's not it's never the form. It's always the content. Yeah. And I haven't really spent much time with many of the other versions. But my understanding is that what about 99.9% of the content of most of them is almost identical, with the exception of the first 5 chapters, maybe, where there was a lot of things that were edited out that were personal to Helen and Bill,
Yeah,
something like that. And I think that corroborates with what Ken has said. So I mean, if you pick up, any of those versions and you look past the form to the content, obviously you're gonna if you allow the content to sink in and apply it, then what difference does it make, right? And
Right. And then,
I think
yeah,
there's some wonderful things on the FIP side that Bob Rosenthal did, including, he compared and contrasted a course of love,
yes.
um, and showed how there's some fundamental differences in that approach that um, you know were significantly different, and it's claimed that it was an extension of the course. Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
but
Well,
the whole point is one can make a a, uh, a religious war about anything, and if we make it about the course, we're obviously totally forgetting what the premise of the course is, that uh, differences, aka the separation, never happened, and anything that represents an importance about differences within our dreams of same is missing the whole point of the
it's
course.
this is the whole point of the course,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so we can say that from both directions, because as you are, I am a quote purist in that I really only use the FIP version, although I have others and have actually read the online here on Gather, what the one they call the original edition, which is basically a knockoff of the Hewlin Casey version that had been photocopied. And then they made some changes themselves that did the original edition. So,
Mhm.
there's some things that are not, and it's funny to get these guys all in a room together or in a chat room together, which we have on many occasions and Gather all these persons that have their own version of the course and have them talk to each other about what they think the other did about it. This was a long time ago. We haven't had that for many, many years, but um, a long time ago, there a lot of these folks would come along to try to, hawk their goods or make, give you their reason for, why they did it. Um, which only if you think you did something wrong will you be too involved in trying to explain why you did it. In my opinion. Okay, that's my opinion. Um, but none of it's wrong. That's the thing. I'm sitting here. I am a teacher of A Course in Miracles, sitting here thinking, oh, somebody did something wrong. How ridiculous.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just the opposite of what this course is teaching me. So if I'm going to that place where I'm saying, um, these guys really screwed up, uh, hey, we all screwed up. I mean, that's the world of the ego. None of it is perfect.
We took the
And
tiny mad idea seriously. That's the
yeah,
only correctable mistake that was ever made, and there's only that one correctable mistake.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's every day we get to correct it.
Hmm.
Every minute we get to correct it. It's not like, oh, I can go back in the past. I can correct it right now just by changing my mind. So yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, back to the book here. Um, I think it's really interesting how Ken is kind of pointing out the way that the course was rolled out per se to the world um, was basically Helen when she was done
Yeah. Yeah.
and saw no reason to go out and try to convince anybody or show anything or do anything. So she didn't think that was part what she was here to describe, and if you're here to if if I'm here to wash the dishes, don't make me be the cook,
Hmm.
because you're going to get a different you're going to get a different thing here.
Well,
So
I think of it as a synergy, and I oftentimes refer to Helen and Bill, Ken and Judy as the Fab Four, because without any one of them, we wouldn't have what we have today, right?
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. So yeah, so she did her part, Bill did his part up to there, and then Judy kind of came along and and did the main rolling out of the course through the publishing and all that business. Um,
And then FIP continues to do wonderful work, just as the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, continue. Those two sister organizations, which I always kind of try to remind people are both worthy of every course student support, are still continuing and in the tradition of their founders to do wonderful work. The FIP, in addition to working on translations 28, 29, I think, and I haven't really kept up with it, but they're still moving forward with that slowly because of some of the principles that were involved in that have gone, but they're still doing audio translations. And then of course a few years ago the web edition came out, which was an enormous gift to everyone in the course community. And then the audio app, which I think is a delight, and so many of the things that are still being done there. And then Jeff Seibert and the other folks in Henderson, Nevada, are still doing weekly conversations with Ken. I think is that the name of it? Anyway, that program. I'm going to have another conversation with Jeff in the next couple of weeks or so, and he is, and the other folks in Henderson are doing wonderful work too, keeping not only that mechanism of disseminating all the incredible work that Ken and Gloria, I always like to include her too in that because she was no slouch either, put out. And they're also still publishing some of the things and transcribing a lot of the work that was done that has never been in print form. And they're, publishing some of the audio and video programs that, so anyway, both of those organizations continue to do wonderful work, and I always try to put in a pitch for people to support them. So
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, and because so much of the stuff I do, we use that online version all the
Oh
time.
yeah, I can't
Every day.
imagine using it any less than about 3 or 4 hours a day with the stuff that I do. I mean, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It is
at
such a
least. Yeah.
gift. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, so all my groups, all my classes, we're studying different parts of the book.
Mhm.
We're doing the lessons, all of that. It's just, because of this little push that happened. And so I'm seeing that Ken's idea that Judy was an alternate plan, uh which really brought it to this. I mean, this is Judy. I mean, seriously, that push all this business to, get this online stuff to do. I mean, you knew her, so
Uh-huh.
what an incredible force, and not as well known, or obviously in the foreground as Ken.
Well,
But
I think it was kind of recognized early on that that Ken would be the primary focus of the teaching, and um, the mission, even the mission statement of FIP is to d disseminate, publish, disseminate, and discuss, I believe, the course, and they've done a lot with the discussion too, and I think it complements what FIP has done wonderfully. I mean, it
oh
really,
yeah,
usually about twice a month they have a webinar, and then the program that the Miracle Voices podcast is, those two things alone, really help put out a lot of things that complement what else is out there. So
exactly.
in
And
addition to all the publishing efforts as well. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I play those here. I play them on
Uh-huh.
Gather and on the radio. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just adds to availability for me for a lot of things that I use as well. So,
Yeah.
I do support them. And
And we all learn from each other. So even though some of the people that are on the different podcasts and webinars and things may not be, you know, completely aligned, for example, with Ken Wapnick's work, that I always try to listen to all of them because, everyone has something to contribute. And I just find it really helpful. And the idea that, we're all, as Ken, not Ken, well, as Ram Dass said, we're all walking each other home, so if we leave anyone out, once again, if we do that, we're missing the point of the course, is that we can't leave any part of the sonship out, any part of creation out, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And who else said that we're all walking each other home? Jesus in A Course in Miracles. How many times does he say walking, walking, walking together, walk home, walk in the light? He's talking about walking us home. That's maybe that's where Ramdas got it. Well, no, it's all one mind. There's no place anybody gets anything. All right, so you want me to continue reading or you want to read?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. As I have already mentioned, in the early years of our association, Helen, Bill, and I spoke of one day living together and having a school or center where A Course in Miracles would be taught. In fact, Helen had seen in her mind a large country house near water, which she thought would be such a place. On a symbolic level, Helen saw this center as the white temple with a gold cross atop it, representing the person and message of Jesus. Helen always maintained that the course was for very few, the 5 or 6 mentioned earlier. Regardless of the actual number, what Helen was clearly expressing, with which I always agreed incidentally, was that A Course in Miracles was not for the masses, at least not right now. It was clear to us that the magnitude of its thought system precluded the course's ready acceptance by the general public in its complete form. One of the few specific guidelines Helen received from Jesus regarding the course, moreover, was that the 3 books, text, workbook for students, and manual for teachers, should never be sold separately, and that they should not be abridged in any way. Thus, it seemed clear to us that despite what the world might do with the 3 books, officially the course should not be changed in form or its message diluted. And so we did think about a quote hardcore unquote group. Helen's expression for this small circle, until we discovered, was a phrase usually associated with pornography. That would be together. Oh my gosh. It cracks me up that Ken would put that in here.
We're all learning current buzzwords about everything, aren't we?
I know it. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
There were probably buzzwords that, in ancient Greek and Roman Egyptian times that swept around too. And how would we know what they are?
We would not know. But it just is so funny to me, that Ken would think to put this in the book.
There's
To
probably hilarious puns in the Egyptian hieroglyphs and the Ptolemaic temples up and down the Nile and when we were there in 92, we had no idea they were there probably.
That's right. You were just saying this is what this is how we work, what we do. No, it's very funny. So they had clear direction from Jesus not to abridge the book in any way. And I hate to point a finger. Oh, no, just kidding. All of these different versions are some form of abridgment, but this is the FIP version is the version that Jesus approved of. As far as I can tell, I see nothing to take that away from my understanding. And I appreciate it. All the headings, the paging, the numbering, all that. I appreciate it so much because it is so useful and helpful. So I guess Jesus had that kind of organized mind as well. Uh, okay. It therefore seemed as if, on one level at least, Helen and Bill were waiting for this moment of meeting Judy. Although it was almost impossible to have known at the time, both Helen and Bill, as we have seen, had decided that their having taken down A Course in Miracles and preparing its final form completed the assignment and fulfilled their part of the agreement with Jesus. Aside from some relatively minor dictation, and he's minor only by comparison with the monumental course, Helen did little or nothing else with A Course in Miracles after its publication a year later in 1976.
Hmm.
Yeah, Yeah. So
Hmm.
Bill, on the other hand, when he left his rather isolated New York life and moved to California, became, let's see, much more assimilated into the West Coast community of course students,
Hmm.
not to mention into the informal California lifestyle. It always remained a slight shock for me to see Bill in sneakers and blue jeans. He who, while in New York, was almost never without a jacket and tie. Bill died on July 4th, 1988, and in his last years with the course's scribing, Helen and the New York scene far behind him seemed more peaceful than ever before. However, Bill too chose not to function in any leadership capacity regarding the course. As I pointed out in part two, Bill was an excellent public speaker who nonetheless found speaking to be extremely anxiety producing. Remember the earlier material in the course regarding Bill's fear of professing what he knew. Um, and so he spoke only rarely, and then only to tell his own story, but not to teach or profess the principles of the course.
Hmm.
He attended weekly and even daily groups on A Course in Miracles, both in the San Francisco Tiburon area and San Diego, La Jolla areas, the two West Coast places where he lived. In these meetings, too, he never assumed any kind of teaching function, a role with which he never felt personally comfortable. On more than one occasion, Bill commented that he felt he and Helen had completed their assignment, the sacred trust I have already mentioned, when they handed the course over to Judy. The conclusion that they had fulfilled their assignment was reached by Helen and Bill without asking Jesus first. I am referring not to the concrete decision to have Judy and the Foundation for Inner Peace publish the course, but to the inner and not always conscious decision that for all intents and purposes, they completed their involvement with the external life of the course.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, I try to figure, so we all, go through phases of involvement with different things. And, we kind of, I think intuitively know, when our part in it's finished. But I think in terms of, the public part, obviously, we all have the, as course students, the process of, I think it's two phases that sort of overlap. The first phase being primarily developing an intellectual understanding of what's being said and getting the theory down. Kind of like when you take a chemistry or a biology class, there's a theory lecture and then there's a lab assignment. You have to sign up for both sections of that class in order to get a passing grade. Well, and and I think of course it's very much the same in the sense that we it's Ken says we can't get too far from the metaphysics of the course, meaning we have to really at least understand the basics that the separation never happened, and it's really forgiveness is a reflection of perfect oneness, and that's trusting Holy Spirit and shared interest, and those kind of ideas are fundamental, and we have to be willing to consider that that's our reality, and that this world is a misinterpretation of what is the reality that's really beyond our usual awareness. Things like that, right? That take a while to even grok intellectually, but then, as far as practicing, in order to make it, to notice the countless little grievances and irritations and annoyances and upsets that we tend to repress and resist and, otherwise project. If there's nothing in the world that pushes our buttons, uh, and we're peaceful no matter what happens or doesn't happen in the world, without exception, they were probably done with the lab part. But I think for most of us, the lab part is the part that becomes more and more predominant over time. At least, it begins to achieve an importance, that is raised to that same level of importance as with the understanding the theory, right?
Yes, yeah, it's just it's so stunning to me in my own experience of having read and studied the course and beginning reading and studying the course and having things dawn on me over and over and over and over, to eventually having something dawn on me called forgiveness is my function, recognizing that is a major, without that, none of this works.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I would always say, someday when I accept the atonement, I can hardly wait for the day that I accept the atonement. I'm thinking to myself, someday I will accept the atonement. It never dawned on me that that was right now. There is no someday about it. But when that did dawn on me, and I'm going to be saying this all day because it just amazes me. When it did dawn on me that that was what this course was all about, I'd already been studying it and teaching it and talking about it for, a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
more than a couple.
And that's okay. I mean, we share whatever we find helpful, and obviously we teach, we learn what we teach, and those two are really identical if the inner and the outer are the same, right? So at some point we realize, oh, I just need to um, keep forgiving
Yeah.
myself for all of my misunderstandings, and kind of getting back to one of the earlier topics of the morning of the conversation. It was like, well, nothing happened. So all I have to do is accept the correction for myself. And then what flows through this imagined persona that in my case I call Bruce, it can be a reflection of that choice, and will reflect kindness and an inner peace. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And how long did it take for me suddenly one day reading the uh, uh, and I can't even think of forgiveness, the uh, uh, rationale. I can't remember the words of forgiveness in the course when it said the reason that forgiveness is always possible and practical and necessary is because nothing happened. I mean, that's not the words the course says, but
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what it says. Nothing happened. This is why all the grievances that you have, all the fears that you have, all the upsets that you have, none of it is really happening, has ever really happened. So the reason that we can forgive is because it never was. But until that dawned on me, I was thinking, I gotta forgive because I'm love and God is love and I don't want to be not love and I want to be peace and I want to be joy and I don't want to be not peace and joy. Never that nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And nor would my ego allow me to think nothing happened when it was so obviously that something had happened.
Yeah. Yeah, we still think there's plenty of things that need repair in our dream, huh?
Oh my gosh. And so yeah,
And and to notice that is a mechanism that ego uses to try to save it its imagined existence, recognizing perhaps mostly on an unconscious level that its days are numbered. Well, of course, the whole idea of time is made up. So yeah, and space. So anything involving space and time. Actually, there's an acronym I like to use is GIST. Guilt, individuality, space, and time. If I'm invested in any of those, I'm probably ignoring or denying some aspect of ego that I'm still harboring, wanting to identify with.
exactly, exactly. And it's the justification for forgiveness that
Hmm.
uh just one day because someone asked me the question. And so because somebody asked me the question, what why would I be able to, why should I? I went and looked and read the justification for forgiveness, which is in chapter 30.
Hmm.
Section 6. And reading that, I recognize, oh, that's the reason all of this entire book that I've been reading and studying for all these years, that's the reason for all of us. I mean, of course, I had said nothing ever happened, the world is not real, I'm not a body. I've said all those things a billion times.
Oh yeah.
But
Haven't we all as course students, right? And yet it sinks in. I mean, we sometimes I think can get discouraged or frustrated thinking, gee, I've been doing this for 40 years or whatever, whatever the number might be for each person. And it's like, well, yeah, but if I look back, I think I'm a whole lot more peaceful now than I would have been had I not stumbled across the course. And I think I can say that with some objectivity. And probably a lot more. And if I can just remember that, it's not a weekend workshop, and from the course's perspective, from Holy Spirit's perspective, it doesn't matter how long we take, right?
right,
Because it's already a done deal.
right.
That there's the phrase that I came across that I'm not sure if it's in the course or just, I put those two words together early on when I was reading the course in the mid 80s, and it was like this happy inevitability that we're all going to get the course's message. We may not, some may not use the course, some may use a completely different mechanism to arrive there, but the content, the form like it says, there's thousands of forms. Just this is just one of the thousands of forms of the universal curriculum, but the content of forgiving ourselves for what never happened, you know, regardless of the words we use to describe it, will be the same, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. And Dove has posted in the chat, let them be as hateful and as vicious as they may. They could have no effect on you unless you fail to recognize it is your dream.
Such a great quote. Thank you, Dev. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
it's a dream. Life would be a dream. It is a dream.
Hmm.
I love
Yeah.
it.
And Susie's comment was, this is a course, not the course. Yeah, and if it was the Course in Miracles, it would have said that. And I think that's the first letter on the cover is A Course in Miracles, meaning there are lots of ways to get back, but this just happens to be a particularly the supersonic transport version
Yes, ST. Yep.
yeah, the way
Saves
home.
time.
Yep. Super saves time. Is that what
Yeah.
SST stands for?
Yeah, super saves time.
Supremely saves time. Should I
Uh,
pick up where you left off?
sure, thank you.
Okay. Helen, because you've been reading a lot. Helen and Bill's inability to forgive each other, let alone identify with the Course in Miracles, made such a leadership role impossible. And this despite repeated assurances from Jesus of the important roles they each would play, above and beyond the scribing of the Course. The reader may recall Jesus' words to Helen that just as she had done something unexpected, so too would Bill do something equally unexpected. As I've already indicated, these past and present messages pointed to an even greater role for both of them, and one which definitely involved more of a teaching function, and themselves in a leadership capacity. In terms of Bill's new function, Jesus indicated that Helen would be as helpful to him as he was to her with her scribal function. In conjunction with this quote new unquote function, Helen saw a mental picture of Bill with headphones on. From time to time, the three of us speculated on the meaning of this image, yet obviously nothing ever came of it. It also seemed, well, there's probably plenty of us, including myself right now, that have headphones on. So, so maybe we're all picking up, the baton, so to speak, and you know, it- and it's never about the form because you can do without saying a word and just in daily interactions with people, uh, and without even being physically in someone else's presence. It's the way we think about everyone is really, a pivotal and crucial part of the course, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. It also seemed clear that there was more for Helen to do, as was seen in several informal messages to Helen from Jesus. One of these, dating from July 22nd, 1978, said, "There is no cause for fear. Make no decisions now. There is a plan for the future, which is not what you expect. God knows what it is, and you do not. Do not try to figure it out." I was thinking that's probably the equivalent of "I need do nothing."
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which I always try to take it to mean it's like, well, it's not, if the course is always and only about the mind, then what the way I take that "I need do nothing" phrase, which is, I think, a very, very powerful forward sentence, is I, as decision-making mind, need do nothing with the ego, on my own, without uh, invoking the Holy Spirit to see things in just the way that Dove was pointing out. And I have to recognize that it's my dream. And if I once I do that, then I won't be taking my projections onto the world seriously, and I will be able to forgive them. And once I'm forgiving them, um, it won't matter what's happening or not happening on the level form. And there will be no resistance left in that moment, at least, to doing what might, what not only might, but will be most helpful to everyone, not just a select few. And I don't know what that is because on my own, I have a, infinite myopia. And
Yeah.
I think we all do, right? Because, we don't see the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
Yeah.
that's that section in I think it's section 10 in the manual about relinquishing judgment. In order to judge rightly, we'd have to understand an an incredibly vast amount of things, past, present, and future, and understand their impact on everyone in every way. Paraphrasing, but who is in a position to do that? Well, no one is. That we're all so identified with our separate selves that we block out the 99.999 whatever percent of what we would need in order to, and it's probably nines us wrapping around the planet a few times, right? Of what we would need to
Absolutely.
understand, and you know but that's what we don't have to worry about that, because if we're following the guidance of the Holy Spirit to see peace instead of whatever we're projecting, and and to realize we're not upset for the reason we think, that in itself, just like Ken says, those two workbook lessons, 5 and 34, would do it.
Yeah,
If
and
we,
you know what helped me out the most about all of that is when I recognize the script is written and there's nothing I can do to change the script. The thing that
Mhm.
I can do is change my mind about the script, about what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I thought there was an opportunity that somehow or the other I could change the plan and suddenly undo everything for all salvation, uh, that would be terrifying. But it's not possible because the plan is already there. It
Mhm.
was written into the script. We're just following along, and we get what we get when we get it, and we don't get it, and if we don't get it, but every time we get every little thing, it is bringing us closer and closer. And that I need do nothing, as we were speaking from chapter 18, section 7. Thank you, Susie. I need do nothing. We were discussing that the other day, and I realized he says I need do nothing except not interfere. And I think
Right,
you
right.
mentioned this before. And entering fear is the way that I think I have to do something. The minute I go into fear mode or thought mode that says somehow or the other I can change the plan, or I have to fix the plan, or undo the plan, or the plan is not working right, or whatever, then I go into fear and I'm no longer in trust. And in that fear state, I can't see anything. In the state of trust, I know it's done. This is done already. We're home. We don't have to even try, the day I get this, the moment I become aware, when I accept the atonement, all of those things, it's already done. Done, done, done. You're done. I'm done. We're all done. Boom. We're just watching the movie of how we get there. That's all. We're just watching the movie of how we get there. We don't even have to watch the movie. We're already there.
Right.
But until we recognize that we're already there, we're going to keep watching the movie and saying, I wonder what's going to happen. Can I change things? Maybe I should vote for Bernie. Whatever the whatever the thought that comes into your mind that says this is how I can make a change. Recognize this. You can't change the script. You can't change the dream. God made it so that we could no more create anything that is not within the accord of his love, that there's no more miscreation available to us.
Hmm.
This is it. And it's not getting more. Don't have to worry about, he's going to add another billion years onto our sentence. We're going to have to go for, no, none of that. It's already done.
Hmm.
So, just stop, just don't interfere.
Yeah, I somehow I had never thought of that pun, so thank you for that. The interfere and interfere. How did I miss that great pun? That's a wonderful and useful pun. Very helpful. Thanks.
Jesus did not pick those words lightly.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
need not interfere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also I think closely related to interfering, which is kind of going out of our way to make a point or to be right in so many different subtle and not so subtle ways, is interpretations. If I'm so off on a tangent on my often a little interpretation fantasy of, well, I think this must be how things are. We miss what other people are saying. We miss what the world is, the feedback that we are getting, which really is coming from our unconscious mind. And we derail ourselves and get off the royal road or the resurrection road, as Lynn Corona likes to say, um, by thinking that I can interpret on my own, which is
yeah,
interfering. Yeah,
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 exactly. Yeah. So and it's so easy, I mean, I just was thinking as you were talking about something that happened here at my house. Um, we were sitting in the dining room playing a board game,
yeah.
and uh, we smelled smoke. It smelled like something was burning. So we get up and we walk around the house and we look, go upstairs, go look, look everywhere so where something in the house could be burning. Didn't find any evidence of it. Went outside, it was coming from, probably the fields behind our house. I don't know. So, it wasn't in the house. So we sat down, we're playing continuing with our game. And Rick said, did you go downstairs and check in the basement? And Sandy said, yes, I did went and check in the basement. And then suddenly she said, do you think there's something on the house that would catch on fire? Is there something in this house that would catch on fire that would be burning? And we looked at each other like, well, there's lots of things in the house that could burn if there was a fire. Yeah, because Rick said, oh, if it did, just get out. Just don't try to do anything. Just get out of the house. And Sandy took it into her mind that he was thinking something in the house could be catching fire, and we could be, and there was a possibility. And that's how easy it is to hear some little offhanded thing and think, oh, he means that something might be on fire here. Now let's be really, really careful. Uh, so yeah, it depends on how you interpret it. And we all laughed about it, but it still was a good example to me how one little offhand remark could
Mhm.
make could send you into a spiral of fear, terror
Mhm.
for no reason. Anyway,
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we do that to ourselves more often than not. Usually we catch them pretty quickly, but well, I mean, sometimes we don't.
sometimes we don't. Sometimes we go along with it, and sometimes we do actions based on it. We
Yeah, yeah.
we drive ourselves crazy over. Oh my gosh. Okay, you can continue reading, I guess. Let's see
Oh,
where.
okay. In this more formal message of January 14th, 1978, later incorporated into the gifts of God, Jesus said to Helen, You are still needed in the world to hear his voice and share his messages of love with those who call in sorrow. And anyway, that's page 127 of the Gifts of God, which is Helen's prose poems, including an essay at the end of it called The Gifts of God. I recall Helen and I discussing this specific passage and her emphatically stating to me that there was nothing more for her to do. I responded with what I thought she, in parentheses, and Bill, could do in terms of helping others with the course and with their relationship with Jesus. If nothing else, I said to her, I believed there were additional pamphlets, quote, inside waiting to be birthed, unquote. However, Helen was adamant, and I knew that she had made up her mind. I always like that phrase because when you make up your mind, well, that's what we did with the ego. we we
I love
chose
that.
duality, and then we made up a whole thought system. We made up our mind, right?
I made up my mind.
Hmm. There, there's
Mm.
a movie called Once that came out, oh, what, a decade or two ago. Glenn Hansard and Merkelova, something like that. Anyway, I forget the
I
exact
remember
names.
the song.
Yeah, there was the song called When Your Mind's Made Up, and I said, well, that's such a great double entendre, you know. Yep. Okay, so let's see. I made up her mind. Okay, indeed, she did not, quote, do more, unquote, at least not anything that could be observed on this plane. Near the end of her life, she retreated more and more from her scribal role and from Jesus, who represented her true self, tending to depreciate the importance of what she had done. Jesus, however, felt quite different. For also in that January 1978 message, he said to her, be thankful for his love and for his care, for in this world it has been given few to give a gift to God as you have done. Yet only few are needed. They suffice for all the rest, and they give thanks to you along with their Creator and with yours. And that's on page 128, the next page of Gifts of God. To summarize, Helen and Bill's joining together was essential for this future function, as it was for the scribing of A Course in Miracles. Yet these two remarkably faithful and dedicated people chose otherwise. They thus remained estranged from each other until the end, and so what might have been remained only within the realm of possibility and not actuality. Well, I'm sure grateful they did as much as they did. I mean, obviously, you know, there's more that we seemingly can do, but yeah, I'm sure glad that they were able
It
to bring
sounds
the
like
course to the world with and Ken and Judy providing stellar roles too in that birthing, huh?
it sounds to me like think someone just made you a wonderful meal and you've just finished eating a wonderful meal and then you turn to them and you say, "Where's the dessert? Get back in the kitchen." Because not this is something that always amazes me, that yes, the gratitude that we have to Helen for having taken on this assignment, the gratitude that I have
Hmm.
to Bill for being there with her and to support her through this, to Ken, of course, my eternal gratitude to Ken for everything
Oh,
that
yeah.
he did to make things move, to Judy, to all the my gratitude to all of these for what they've done, and then to imagine that, but you could have done more. You
Don't rest on those laurels.
go make us dessert.
Yeah, and yet it's obvious that there's no disappointment whatsoever on the part of Jesus, in the sense that how could perfect oneness be upset with a dream, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's only us that think that there's something that needs to be done within our dream that still laments, or regrets, or otherwise has mixed feelings about anything, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that the fact that we're so conflicted in our understanding of this as a dream, that think somehow or the other that it could be different and we could change things, or, could have gotten more, or, as some people have gone through every, with a tooth comb, every little bit of, back of the napkin Helen ever wrote down, and, try to, piece it together to make, more meaning for the Course in Miracles, more understanding of Course. I mean, it's simple enough. We don't need more. We need to eat what's on our plate already. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I've got plenty to work with for the rest of this lifetime to integrate the course and finish what I can of the lab assignment,
But
that's
could you put some footnotes in that for me, please? And an appendix, then some. Uh,
well, I'm wrapping up the glossary project right now, so
oh, good. That
yeah,
is
yeah,
good.
it's forthcoming.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I've got another fourth book in progress too, just not as far along, but yeah.
What kind of a book is it? A science book or a?
No, no, it's actually going to be just sort of like I'm going to attempt to use as little coarse language as possible, but try to uh, explain and give examples of how to use course principles um, in simple, straightforward terms and with some of my favorite metaphors and that kind of thing. So anyway,
I
it's a fun
love
project.
it. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Yay. So, well, I closed the book because we don't
Yeah,
really have
I
time.
put a mark there too. I figured we reached a good stopping point in the next major section for next
Yeah.
week. So yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
very excited. I just love you so much. I'm grateful
Likewise,
for you.
it's been such a delight doing this for gosh, has it been over a decade? It's been a
It's
while, and
well over a decade. Yeah.
thanks to Dove. I remember Dove saying in San Francisco when we met at one of Rev Tony's conferences. He said, "Hey, we got this thing called ACIM Gather. You might want to take a slot." And then not too long after doing a few monologues, which was fun. But that I quickly realized that having a conversation is so much more fun. And you and I've been doing this for a good while, so and enjoying it and getting to share our appreciation of some great works like Gary Renard's fourth book and Ken's The Journey Home and the 1300 plus FAQs and now this and who knows where we'll head to next summer, huh?
I know, yeah, it's so fun and so cool, and to see, because we came together through technology,
Mm-hmm.
that when you came on to Gather, you had a Mac, it didn't work well with Pal Talk,
Right,
um,
right, yeah,
we tried to figure out how to get you on, then, came up with Skype, and you were able to go through Skype, and we were able to pipe you in, and then one day we just started chatting, and the next thing you know,
yeah. I think Microsoft is actually shutting down Skype if I remember reading that correctly. Yeah. It's kind of probably withered from lack of use somewhat.
well, that's interesting because they just did some kind of an upgrade, or they're trying to do some
Yeah,
kind of upgrade to it. It's with Zoom and all these other technologies. If it didn't keep up,
yeah,
it's like the
yeah.
Betamax.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, thank you again, Lynn, and have a great week and look forward to picking up where we left off.
No, thank you so much, Bruce. I love you, brother.
Have a peaceful week all.
Absolutely.